Good afternoon. I'm coming to you again from our house in Pocatello, where I want to talk to you a little bit about the romantic music that was produced after the Second World War. So the song that I'm going to be talking about and performing here is called I'll Be Seeing You. It was written by two men, Irving Cahill and Sammy Fain. Those two men are a lot like Yip Harburg. They were born a little later, so we're now leaving the Victorian era behind. They were born in 1902 and 1903, so they're definitely 20th century men. They were, though, both New Yorkers. They both lived in the Lower East Side area of Manhattan, and they were both involved in vaudeville and began writing songs for Broadway and also for Hollywood films. So they were both Jewish Americans. Sammy Fain's real name was Samuel Feinberg. So like a lot of Jewish Americans, he anglicized his name a bit. So anyway, these men both became friends and became lifelong partners. They left New York behind when the film industry moved to Los Angeles, where the climate was much more conducive to year-round filming, and so they wrote for Hollywood films as well. In fact, this song, excuse me, was written for a Hollywood film. So the era that I'm talking about here is Second World War. So the Second World War begins in Europe in 1939. The United States gets in the war in 1941 after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. War is over by 1945. So you might wonder why so many romantic songs were so popular in this time period. And I'm thinking that while war is certainly a destructive, horrible, horrifying event for many, many people, millions of men lost their lives, women too, in this war. This war, of course, is associated with the Holocaust, which is a terrible human tragedy. However, war is also a time of heightened romantic feelings, and that's what this kind of music really capitalized on. So, on the one hand, if you're a young man and you're either drafted or you enlist in the military and you have to leave, you may be leaving behind a wife or a sweetheart. And we know that soldiers often carried the picture of their wife or girlfriend with them as they soldiered through Europe. Men tended to decorate their barracks with images, of course, of their wives, but also sometimes of romantic, imaginable partners with pinup girls and this kind of thing. But I'm talking now about this romantic feeling that war often brings out. So there's that when men had to leave their wives or their girlfriends and go overseas. That separation, of course, makes people think more about their romantic feelings and focus more on their romantic feelings. And certainly there were a lot of films and a lot of music produced during those war years that evoked romance. But this song, anyway, is more about when men go overseas to be soldiers, they often meet women when they're away from home. Perhaps they're seen by the local population as being these romantic figures that are coming to fight in a terrible tragedy like a war. And so that tends to evoke people's sense of romance. So this particular song appears to be about romance between a soldier and a woman that he meets in Paris. Paris, of course, being a very romantic city. So the two men here set this song in Paris to kind of evoke these feelings of romance. So the period of this romantic music is roughly from the 40s to the early 50s, when, of course, rock and roll starts to take over, and that's a very different thing. But this I'm using to sort of, again, symbolize that sense of separation during war. The tragedy of war often evokes people's romantic feelings, and that's what this music represented. So I'm going to try playing a few bars here to begin with, and then I'll move on to a different video. So again, this is called I'll Be Seeing You. It's by Irving Cahill and Sammy Fain. So let me just first play the first few measures here. So notice the church bells. Cathedral bells were ringing, and our hearts sang on. Was it the spell of Paris, or the April dawn? Who knows if we shall meet again? But when the morning chimes ring sweet again. So notice that the song starts out talking about cathedral bells tolling and our hearts sang on, and of course the piano mimics those bells. That's one thing about a piano that works pretty well most of the time. It can mimic a lot of different sounds. Not that it's the only instrument that can do that, but it is often used because it's pretty versatile. So the lyrics say, cathedral bells were tolling and our hearts sang on. Was it the spell of Paris or the April dawn? So this couple is together, they're having these experiences while they're in Paris. And then the singer says, who knows if we shall meet again, but when the morning chimes ring sweet again. And so then the next lyrics start, I'll be seeing you in all the different places that we spent time together. So I will start the next tape.